Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, reaching out to you from the way back years of your past, those years best kept closeted with your love of GoBots and Mask, your first crush, and either your first brief flirtation with Dungeons and Dragons or the beginning of your lifelong addiction. Thaco and fumble charts aside, many games have gone out of their way to try to, at the very least, have a somewhat familiar look and feel to them, especially when speaking to old grognards such as myself. Card Hunter recently, and now today, the Guild of Dungeoneering, a game that holds its natural 20s close to its chest in a desire to surprise you with a backstab to your heart. But what is Guild of Dungeoneering? Well, it's sort of a card battler, turn-based, nerd-crushing RPG light with some roguelike elements game, all smashed into a pencil and graph paper world. Let's see if this succeeds, bringing an old-style tabletop meets D&D merged with Munchkin game to the digital scene, or if it's just a bard, a useless, oddly planned thing made up of parts like some kind of D&D Frankenstein, this time in video game form. Guild of Dungeoneering will be out on Steam on July 14th, and it's brought to you by Gamebrios and published by Versus Evil. Remember, this review's caffeinated, which means, like Red Bull, it'll either give you wings or leave you wondering what the hell you just experienced. So here it is, the review for Guild of Dungeoneering. Limitless heroes, mimics, graph paper, and high-level mimes. Let's see how it does. Graphics are up first, the splendor of spectacular sight, and the magical missile to your visual cortex, +2. First up, you'd think that a game that was basically black and white with some red, yellow, and blue to denote a couple things would be bland looking, but you'd be wrong. Basically, just grab your best friend, that one that can sketch the passable random creature fairly well but can't talk to girls without sounding like a skipping record, and that's Guild of Dungeoneering in a nutshell, with a rough-hewn, almost Munchkin-like kind of artistic design to everything within the game. The black and white with offshoots of colored design philosophy harkens back to a time when computers and digital art weren't a thing, and instead people drew their characters on peaches and argued over if 2-hit armor class 0 was the most arbitrary and broken mechanic in all of gaming, or the last great bid for the nerd elite to rule gamekind with a Gygax fist. Everything from the characters to the monsters is done fantastically well, with a simplistic but visually informative design throughout the game. I can't say I love the overland map's fog of war, however, and a couple times I confused the indicator that a room could be connected with another for the fact that it was connected with the other, and there's an occasional messiness to the design at that point. It's still good, but it feels like at times maps and their locations don't have as much granularity as I would expect. However, as you build new rooms on your little guild hall, you can't help but be enamored by the 10-year-old channeled through an adult mind design of everything. It's a standout work with a couple fumbles. Up next is sound, music, and voice.
A scream is heard to chill the bones, so lift the earth and lay the stones, a martyr's grave to recompense. But others would have had more sense.
And sounds up first, and they're good with various effects used during combat and exploration. You know, it's not a particularly sound-heavy game, and missing are the little details like magic whooshes for magic attacks or something to that sort, and each card doesn't, sadly, have its own sound or even have its own effects. But what is included is okay as you explore and tackle all manner of assorted black and white, then come-to-life beasties. Pretty much okay. If they'd recorded effects for many of the attacks, the game would have been a good deal farther in this category, but you know what? You can't have everything. Sound? Okay. Moving on to music. This is the kind of nerd-like attention to detail and crisp effectiveness you expect from people who have mini-maxed characters since Mask was big on TV. The music is a hilarious addition of chanties and sung lyrics, belting out when various locations are found, enemies are killed, and even when your vast number of guildies suffers a dirt nap. During normal exploration, the ambient tracks are very good, though as an overall soundtrack, it is a little bit thematically all over the place, with classical music styles and transient vibe inhabiting the same spaces, resulting in some oddly good but ill-fitting music pieces. I liked it, but the musical chanties took the cake here and then ran off with it compared to everything else. All in all, I would say excellent, if a couple pieces just seemed a little bit ill-fitting. Voice. You know, other than the chanties themselves, there is no actual voice. The chanties are done really well, but I sort of covered that in the music section. So moving on to gameplay. You know, the game really does play like a mix of playing D&D with your antagonistic cousin that never matured past 4th grade and a choose-your-own-adventure, except remove most of the choice and replace all the page numbers with images of you dying. If this isn't a little paper dude death simulator, no game ever will be. You see, you've created the Guild of Dungeoneering, a, at the start, small single-building guild that outputs adventures at an insane pace to adventure in various dungeons created by some kind of overlord god being whose name I can only assume is like Earl or Randy. You jump into a game world and each turn you get a hand of cards with some monsters, some treasure, and hopefully some new rooms you can attach to the current sections you inhabit, thus coaxing your chosen adventurer to explore, grind, or drive towards the main baddie in the dungeon, if one exists, of course. Once you bump into an enemy, either the main baddie or just one of the small gruntlings that sit around inside the dungeon with all the mobility of a blob of fat in an artery, you go into battle. You again draw a hand of cards from your deck that's altered depending on which of the various adventures you've decided to spend an unlucky couple minutes with. The enemy does the same, and then you play them against one another with melee, magic, and special attacks all playing out in various ways, with the goal being to end the life of the enemy before he ends yours. When you do win, you get to collect loot, either money or you can choose from assorted items. This again brings the card game Munchkin similarities to the forefront, being outfitted with forks, table legs, pans on your head, and various other comical items. Each can not only adjust the health you have, but also adds cards to your deck for later battles. Here's also where some of the problems crop up. Because despite the enjoyment and despite the cuteness, the game had some serious bugs during battle, like cards not taking their intended effect, card effects not triggering at times, ambient bonuses or negatives not showing up in your paper doll, leaving you guessing what the hell is going on until some random thing triggered it. When it works well, but some of the bugs really killed my enjoyment. There were times when my first battle was in the very next room I had entered into the maze with, and adjustments to the characters just hadn't occurred because I hadn't really bumped into anything like luck fountains and so on. Yet randomly, the enemy's shield ability would stop all my damage, regardless of type, which is exactly not what it's supposed to do. Honestly, it's as if there's some checks behind the gameplay and behind the scenes, and at some point the game just figures, fuck it, let's mulch this little dude. Additionally, the high turnover of heroes can be fun in a roguelike way, with the built-in cemetery in the guild hall poking fun at the consistent death, but it also served to remind me of the gameplay bugs as well, as many times you can see a 10 to 12 death Congo line before winning a single fight, and that's even if you don't get a bug. And I don't mean having the chance to win. I mean, due to the simple cards being drawn, it's easily not possible to win at various times within the game. First, I really want to make it clear, I'm okay with difficulty. I actually like it. It doesn't bother me. I'm a fan of games like Arma, where someone can shoot you in the eye from 8,000 yards out while hanging off the landing skid of an Apache helicopter at full speed. But bugs, they kill me, especially in a game like this where it's so easily noticeable and the game's desire to be hard doubles down on those bugs. So you'd think that building up your guild would at least fix or mediate some of these problems, right? Nope. Instead, it just makes items pop up more often after battles in the loot section, or unlocks new hero types, none of which are powerful enough to escape the dreaded oh shit, here we go curse of bad card draws before they can even get a chance at some of the new hot loot that your building of effervescent shielding +1 should offer. The gameplay is almost hilariously split between being a mini RPG guild building simulator and a full roguelike with heroes entering the world just to leave it in a pine box. I mean, this game kills enough adventures, I'm not sure why their card deck doesn't have a goddamn coffin for its background art. Frequent battle bugs aside, it's the split personality that can cause the game some of its problems. The order of particular things are just sort of crazy, and the way the guild buildings don't actually outfit you, but instead strangely work for your enemies, just seems to add and be another odd design choice. Additionally, this has to be one of the most hands-off games I've played in years since Progress Quest, with the secondary and even tertiary control of things in the game world making it feel very distant to everything. You see, you don't control the adventurers, you lure them places by placing items in the game world and hope they give a shit. Once you jump into battle, you do get to pick the cards at least, but that's about it. Building additions, as I said, to your guild many times don't do anything but add that loot to the enemies later, which means there's a chance of your new items showing up per chance. It's all oddly disconnected, and despite some fun gameplay elements, it feels like you're viewing it from 1,000 feet away, and that's made even worse by the unzoomable, unmodifiable camera that continues to elicit that feeling throughout the game. As luck would have it, though, if one of your adventurers does live through the battle, they collect a loot card like forks, benches, random crowns, and other assorted comical effects that give them more cards to use in the upcoming battles. Win or lose, you soon end up returning to the guild with some money, and it's with that money you upgrade, which completes the gameplay loop. Fun factor. This is what going insane must feel like. At one point, the game is fun when everything is working and you're fighting enemies and doing well, or even dying, but feeling like you can understand what's up. Then there is the distance of the gameplay itself, leaving you 7 degrees from Kevin Bacon in the gameplay department, with one hand asking you to cultivate and outfit heroes, and the next demanding you forget about them and move on, like a black and white sketch version of an ex-girlfriend one-night stand. It's just odd, and to be honest, many times I've found myself as frustrated as I was interested. With a couple changes, this game could be incredibly fun, especially if they added the ability to have multiple party members exploring dungeons. But for right now, it's just simply okay. So I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never talk about it again rating scale, and this for me is a wait for a sale. The game has a lot going for it, but for every single step forward, there seemed to be a giant leap back, and those things that made the game fun were attached to less enjoyable aspects through an umbilical cord of bad design. Thankfully, you're warned now, and knowing those aspects of the game, you can go into it with a bit more information than yours truly, and perhaps that'll be enough. And I hope some of the bugs get fixed, because the game would have been far more enjoyable if my hero would quit randomly losing a hit point when both me and my enemy picked a shield icon, like we hammered them together hard enough to stun me. So that's it for me. I hope you liked the review. If you did, thumbs up and maybe share it on Twitter or go to our Patreon. If you didn't, thumbs down as always, and peace out.